I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, February the 18th, brought to you in part by Norbrook. Norbrook wants producers to be aware of the new FDA antibiotic guidelines starting June 2023. So that'll be a year from this coming June. You will need a script for all antibiotics, even penicillin, and other common products like Norbrook's popular Noromycin 300 LA. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Farmer feeders have an advantage, and we know that because they have their own grain there, right there at their place, and they can feed that cheaper than a commercial feedlot that has to buy their grain and have it shipped in there, especially their on-farm storage, which the government may or may not know about, especially those last couple of loads in those trucks. But you know, they can feed their own grain right there, and they like to feed calves. They like to feed fancy calves, where your commercial feed yards more want those AG type yearling type cattle with the quick come on. But farmer feeders like fancy calves, long time weaned, reputation type calves, and that's the kind that are selling right now. And so we're seeing the northern plains and the upper southern plains selling those middleweight calves at a big premium, and I mean, they are really selling well. And if you go out there out front on your board, you can kind of make them work. I mean, not necessarily some of the big prices that they're given, but they're expecting those cattle to really perform, and they're trying to make those work on the come, which that's kind of the way that cattle people actually you know, invest, is betting on the come. But you know, it's just so much easier for them to feed their own grain that they have right there on farm storage. They may not have the best of facilities, but they've got a couple of pens there. They've got some bunk there, and they've got a feed truck, and they can really make those things work. And if you look at what your grain prices are, and of course they are skyrocketing right now, and likely to stay at these levels until we get at least close to planting, and see what our moisture levels are whenever we get close to planting. But you look at the southern plains corn basis, like in the Texas Panhandle, it's plus 50 to plus 60 basis there to the board. So you've got your corn prices over $7 a bushel if you're buying that. Now, I realize that a lot of those commercial feedlots have already hedged and have their corn bought for a while, but still you got to figure what it would cost you to get that, where if you go up into central Nebraska, your corn basis is 28 under to plus just 8 cents. So your corn price in central Nebraska is running from 622 to 642, the latest reported by USDA there. But that makes a big difference, and if you already have that corn on the place, you don't have any freight charges or any expensive storage costs on it, then you're ahead of the game there, and that's why we're seeing the big disparage on these fancier middle and heavier weight calves weighing in the 6 to middle 7s there, and that's what your farmer feeders really like to feed. But let's look at the board on Thursday. February live cattle futures were up 27 cents at 143.40. That's going to be a slight premium to what our weighted average is going to be for this week. April's down 15 cents at 146.77. You go on your back months of live cattle, they were down 10 cents to down 32, but not big. I mean, that's not much. You know, we've had bigger gains than that so far earlier this week. But March feeder cattle down $1.25, 166.20. April was down $1.02 at 171.15. Your back months, your feeder cattle were down 50 to down 82. So we saw bigger gains earlier in the week, especially on your out front feeder cattle futures, and now we're seeing those back up, and of course those losses are a little bigger too. But look at your grains, and they were fairly quiet considering how volatile that they've been here of late. But corn was up 3 cents at 6.50 a bushel on the settlement. Beans up 4.5 cents at 15.92, and Kansas City hard red winter wheat up 15 cents at 8.23 a bushel. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade. We continued to see trade from Wednesday was whenever we established the market. We saw a little bit more trade, and we've had a decent movement, not as big as last week or the week before, but so far around 70,000 head, and there's going to be more than that because there's more sales that happened on Thursday that didn't get turned in. Might get a little bit of trade on Friday, but still a pretty significant movement there on light market ready supplies. And we've seen that that these packers have been wanting, and they were indeed doing that on Thursday. I heard private reports coming in saying that packers were flagging that 142 around pretty liberally and trying to buy cattle with time. They bought up the show lists that were available. They were wanting to buy show lists, 3 weeks out or a month out for the same 142. And by all accounts, I heard your Southern Plains cattle feeders were resisting that steady market because they're wanting to gain more ground while they're in the driver's seat with light market ready supplies. And we haven't seen a whole lot of that 2 to 4 week trade, and we don't know about it any further than that. But we haven't seen a lot of that 2 to 4 week trade the last few weeks, which is what packers use to kind of set your feedlots up for a fall whenever they get some of that leverage back, and then they have some cattle coming to them for the week that they're in or the next week, and then they don't have to get very aggressive on the few loose hand supplies that they really need to fill their needs. But look at your confirmed sales on Thursday. Iowa about 1,700. They've had about 15,000 for the week. We would like to see them have 20,000. I don't know if we're going to reach that level this week or not, but live sales 142 to 143. Dress sales from 224 to 226. Nebraska had about 7,000 more on Thursday, close to 28,000 for the week, and that's pretty decent for them. Live sales 142 to 143, and dress sales all at 226, and that's a full $2 higher than the bulk of last week's trade. Kansas and Texas didn't see near as much trade, but what trade they did see was at 142, and that's a full $2 higher than the bulk of last week's sales. But Kansas only about 400 head, a little over 18,000 for the week. We'd like to see them trade a little more than that, but all at 142. Texas about 1,900 after the bulk of the sales, which is pretty encouraging there, and they've had about 9,000 for the week, and that's about as good as we can expect them to have. The study that they did said that they need 10,000 in Texas for robust trade, but we very rarely get more than 10,000, but 9,000 is not too bad up through 2 o'clock on Thursday, but all at 142 also. Box beef cutout values. Choice cuts 269.59, down just 3 cents, so basically steady on them. Select down $1.23, and we're starting to see that choice select spread widen just a little bit, but it was as narrow as $2.50 earlier this week. But select cuts Thursday afternoon at 264.85. Your slaughter's been running very healthy so far this week up through Thursday, 488,000 estimated. That's exactly the same as last week, and 110,000 more than the same week a year ago when severe winter storms were limiting the kill that we could get the same week a year ago. Actual slaughter information come back for the week ending February the 5th. Had your average dressed steer carcass weight at 930 pounds, and they're still up there, guys. So we're not getting so short of cattle that they're starting to get light on us yet. But let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Thursday, sitting at 161.32. Actually kind of caught up and is up 15 cents compared to the close of sales on Wednesday. But we saw some losses there early to middle week there is your buyers are just backing off of these heavier feeder cattle because we haven't seen the gains in your out front live cattle futures, and so it's harder to hedge those cattle. But we're seeing all the big gains on your calves, and especially on those middleweight calves that I talked about early in the report there, with farmer feeders in the Midwest and Northern Plains really pushing the issue on those. Your Friday sales include Nevada Livestock Marketing in Fallon, Nevada. Not going to be able to be out there this Friday for this special as I'm in San Antonio at the stock show with my daughter, but about 3,000 head there for Nevada Livestock Marketing sale on Friday, and that's our feeder special. You can go on to dvauction.com, view and bid that sale and get some hard Nevada mountain cattle out of there. How about your big sales on Thursday? Pratt Livestock, winter livestock at Pratt, 3,200 head there, a good run for them despite some kind of wintry type weather. Feeders $2 to $5 lower, and we've been seeing that, but that's a little bit more severe than what we've seen. Calves steady to $5 higher, but a good sale there in Pratt. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas, also 3,200 head, straight north of there. Feeders there $2 to $6 lower, as reported by Federal State Market News. Lightweight calves $2 to $4 higher. They did quote those middleweight calves there lower because last week they had such an outstanding sale on those with some reputation consignments, and there was really no place for that trend to go but lower on those middleweight calves in Salina. But the best sale that we saw on Thursday was in Ogallala, Nebraska, at Ogallala Livestock Auction, 7,300 head there. And you look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central with DV Auction, and I'm going to give you all the best tested weights, and it was a well-tested market on steers and heifers, calves, and bigger feeder cattle, and they would also be calves in that part of the country because they wean bigger calves, and those calves are such great genetics that they put a lot of weight to them. But 551 head of your 5-weight steers in Ogallala, average 564 pounds with a weighted average price of $215.36. Over 1,000 head of 6-weight steer calves in Ogallala, average 661 with a weighted average price of $187.55. Very impressive on heavyweight 6s there. How about 1,339 of your 7-weight steer calves, and most all of them be long time weaned and top quality. The average 745 with a weighted average price on all of them, weighing close to 7.5, of $170.25. Wow. Look at your heifers, and the heifers, even though they're selling very impressive, there's a big discount on heifers. And if you guys are buying cattle on the video and you see that they've got $10 back on the heifers, you got to adjust for that because it's not enough as these prices really get elevated up here. 642 head of your 5-weight heifer calves, average 557 at $177.37. That's about $40 back from their brothers. How about 1,022 head of the 6-weight heifer calves in Ogallala? The average 645 with a weighted average price on all those 6-weight heifers of $165.82. That's about 20 back from their brothers. And 914 head of 7-weight heifer calves, average 738 with a weighted average price of $155.95, and that's about $15 back even on those feeder type cattle there. And so you need to kind of adjust whenever they're giving you so many dollars back on the heifers. But some individual quotes around the circuit on Thursday. Lamona Livestock Auction, Lamona, Iowa there. Talked to Jason Allen there, and he told me about 139 head of 742 pound steers, bring $175. How about Clarinda, Iowa, which is just a little ways to the west there. Clarinda Livestock Auction, 51 head, 652 pound steer calves, bring $194. Ogallala Livestock had a very impressive quote on some lightweight calves there. I mean, these would have had all the bells and whistles. 78 head, 538 pound steer calves, bring $237. But the best quote that I saw anywhere, your National Beef Wire top quote for the day, because we've been struggling to get those heavy feeders up there in those elevated prices. But how about Columbus Sales Pavilion, Columbus, Nebraska? I was up there last weekend. 108 head, 862 pound feeder steers, bring $169.50. That's your feeder flash for Friday.